Welcome to the Franchise Secrets Podcast with your host, Eric Van Horn. And today's guest is Steve Kopshaw. He's with Fit 36. And before that, he was with Fitness Together and Elements Massage, a part of WellBiz Brands. And we're going to dive into how someone becomes a franchisor of a brand that he used to be a franchisee of. And we're going to dive into a lot of different things with Steve. But before we get started, if you're interested in learning about franchises to buy, what your options are out there, a lot of people have been trying to reach me, and I haven't been very good about giving people a way to reach me. Go to talkwitheric.com, talkwitheric, ERIK.com. So let's go ahead and get started with Steve. Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Eric, how's it going today, man?
Oh, it's a good day. Just before we got started and hit record, I found out that you were in Denver, and that's where I've got locations. And so I'm going to have you do a little bit of recon for me out there.
Hey, bring it out. I got a couple of free hours this afternoon and always looking for some new partnerships and some new opportunities. So I'd love to go look for you.
Well, that's one of the things like that, you've got, we'll get into it in a little bit, but it's not just you in Fit 36. And I think you and I both understand the value of strategic relationships and partnerships and how that can just really excel someone into business and into success much faster than they could on their own. So I know you've done some really neat things with that, leveraging people, but why don't we go into how you first got started in franchising before we dive into all the fun stuff?
Yeah, we're talking 12 years ago at this point. Got hired on in a Fitness Together as just a part-time trainer. Remember it like yesterday, Tuesday, Thursday nights from 4:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So 9 hours a week, making $18 an hour. And that was my introduction. I don't even know if I really knew it was a franchise or what it was at that point in time, but it just kind of grew from there to where we're at today. The secondary step was, hey, I think I can kind of go do it a little bit better, or I want to do it my way. And, you're young and you think you know better. But then all you know is I was in that brand and went in and ended up buying a location and opening a location with a business partner at that time.
So let's pause there because one of my key managers in the solo salon business that I was in did the same thing. And I knew he would do it because I knew he was like a really smart guy. And I knew that, we would have him for a period of time. I didn't think he would do it that quickly. And he's still a good friend of mine today, really good friend of mine. But like, what was that like for you working for a franchisee and then going and buying your own? Let's pause there for a little bit because I'm a big fan of people. If they're don't have the money, the capital, or the experience, go work for somebody and learn from them. So like, what was that like, that process?
It was big, just trying to learn and understand what something like that really costs to go and do. Some people don't have any clarity into it, and some people can probably nail it on the head, but work hard, save as much money as you can when you're younger and go through that process, find lending, and you start to realize that there's a lot of pieces to a business that you really don't know. Doing a push-up, I could do that better than anybody else in my mind, and that's every trainer in the world. But running a business, that's not even 1% of it. So it became finding and lucky for me, my business partner was actually a client of mine at the time. So she her kids were getting a little bit older. Her husband established in his role, and she was working part-time, wanted to kind of make a career change there. And it enabled us to go out where I could be operations and work on the day-to-day stuff, deal with the clients and go through that customer service piece, whereas somebody could go out and run and worry about the marketing, the sales, and taking care of onboarding new clients and new members. So it was something at the time that was probably a little bit lucky, for sure, but we knew that we needed it, and we went out and grew a successful business in our first year of learning about a lease and going through the process and selling and price competitive analysis and, walking the streets hanging door hangers and, just grinding it out. I mean, there was nights sleeping in the studio. It was a 7-minute drive to my house, but that was 14 minutes round trip that I didn't get to sleep after I just worked a 16-hour day. So, you work hard and you learn from it.
Were push-ups like not taking priority at that time?
Oh God. There was some days I'll never forget our best month ever in the first year. There was a Wednesday, the last day of June of 2010. And heat of the recession. We opened our first one in 2009, right? June of 2010, less than a year later, we did over 700 sessions in a 2-room studio. And that very last day, I did 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. straight, 45-minute sessions, 20 sessions in a row, pretty much surviving on coffee. But we were just driven by the goal of succeeding. And you'll sleep tomorrow, sleep when you're dead type mentality, and just work at it.
When you first got the idea of like, hey, I can do this. I'm good at push-ups. I can run this business better than anybody. Was that your idea initially, or was it her idea? And how did that really, conversation come to be?
I was being a diligent personal trainer. We were getting some cardio in, making sure that she was reaching her goals. And in the process, you form a friendship. So I was just talking about some of my goals and, the whole, I think I can do it better type thing. And I'd rather spend my money on this or that, or why don't we do a recurring payment over a one-time payment type stuff, just the way I would want to run my business. And just through that process, Lisa is her name, said, well, hey, why don't we go do it together? And that was in August of 2008. And then in November of 2008, we were out at Discovery Day in Denver, meeting with the team out there. We signed our franchise agreement in January of 2009, and we opened the middle of June of 2009. So it was a less than a year turnaround from a random conversation to, hey, we got a business now. So, building out, I worked at the other fitness together that I was at up until April. Had about 6 weeks off until we opened our doors, and used that time to lay tile and paint the walls. And we had a shoestring budget, and we had to go out and do it all and make sure it worked. So, is
she still a business partner today?
She is. Yep. She's so she's been my business partner since the end of 2008 when we formed our business. And now we've basically formed a bigger partnership with 4 additional people as well. So, but she's still there too. Yep.
So what came first on this transitioning into more of what you're doing now with these 4 other people? So there's 6 of you in total. Did you guys have this dream team, and you needed to find locations and concepts to grow, or did you have locations and concepts and then the team came about?
They both came about within about 24 hours of each other. We were sitting at a national conference, and we'd all known that we all existed, and we all knew that certain people were known within the system for different things and had different strengths. And it was just one of those things throughout the years, the fellow franchisees. Well, we're at a national conference, and we all wanted that next thing. But for us, it was more of, how do I find somebody else to help me, and then I can help them. So we formed a little bit of a masterminds group, and we basically, I remember sitting in the car on our first kind of call as a whole. This was in 16, 17 now, where we ended up just like, all right, quarterly, we're going to visit each other's location, and monthly, we're going to have a call, and each person's going to teach the group about something new, and we're just trying to figure it out. And we started that. Our very first trip was a trip out to Cleveland. Now, my one business partner, Sean, love him to death. And he's a Cleveland. I'm coming from New York City. He's a vegan. I don't know if he wants me to tell that to the world, but I'm telling it.
It's too late now.
I love a good porterhouse. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, how in the world are we going to have like fun in Cleveland coming from New York? Well, all of us getting together having fun, not a care in the world, and learning was one of the most amazing trips that we collectively have ever been on. And Cleveland is a fun city, and you can have fun being a vegan. So he proved me wrong all day long on that one. But that true form of friendship and getting together in person, not necessarily just over phones, really grew quickly. And we started just helping each other, and we basically relinquished the things that we weren't good at in our own businesses and let our mastermind group start to kind of work its magic. At the same time, we were all either area directors, area developers, or leadership council representatives within the brand of Fitness Together. Maybe 4 weeks after that trip, we were all out in Colorado at a meeting, all out to dinner that night. And the idea came up of, why don't we all go into like legitimate business together and take over this studio that's failing? And that idea was born in September. The 2 or 3 weeks later, we were down in Washington, D.C. looking at it. And December 1st, we started managing it. January, the transaction happened, and the rest is history. We saw opportunity in failing stores, not because the store or the system was bad, but rather because the owner and the implementation wasn't happening. And we were able to go out and create over 60% growth in a year-over-year basis, just by doing what we do and focusing on the things that we're good at and we enjoy. So there we kind of knew we had something, and now it's just taken off to more pieces from that.
So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses personally?
My weaknesses are definitely in the ongoing upkeep of the day-to-day operations, the client engagement piece, items such as managing our CRMs, managing your retention scores, managing the likelihood of referrals. I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to managing the employees. I'm a little bit more black and white, things along those lines. So the team very much balances me out there. My strengths heavily lie in more of strategy building, more going through the process of getting, here's our process, here's what we're going to do now as a team, let's go out and execute, keep our team basically accountable to what our ultimate goal is, and going out and kind of looking at that next opportunity. When it comes to the day-to-day op stuff, it's business management stuff. How do we go from one-time payments to recurring payments? How do we create a business that will be sellable for more than a 1 to 2 times multiple? I want a 3, 4, 5 times multiple. How do we create something of value, and how do we keep that profit margin intact along the way?
So that is like, I'm more of that guy as well. The strategic thinker, and one of the challenges I've had over the years is trying to put value on that myself, because people that are in the grind doing the stuff, there's a tangible thing that is associated with that, versus when you're like thinking about stuff and bringing ideas, it doesn't seem to be as tangible. So was there any discussion of that with the group, or did you feel anything that was like, gosh, I don't know that I'm adding as much?
No, our group is pretty, we're pretty tight. We're we're friends first. We're family first before anything else. On any given one day or any one instance in anything in life, especially business, somebody is always giving more and getting more. It's just the way it is. But when you go out and you look at the entirety.
So true. I mean, that what you just said there is gold. You have to be okay with that, because it's always going to be changing, isn't it? I mean, one day you're going to be giving a lot more. The next day you're going to be getting a lot more. So yeah, keep going in that. But I just like it. I've seen that to be true in my own partnerships.
Yeah, that's probably the best asset that we have as a team. We get that we all can't give 16.67% of every minute of every day equally across the board. There's ebbs and flows. Mike and Katie have a sick child, so that's something that's always in the forefront that they're worried about, and we need them to worry about that before anything else. Aaron recently had a baby daughter born about 3 months ago. She was a little bit premature, so he was focused on that. Sean just had a baby boy a week and a half ago. He's focused on that. I mean, life happens. I'm going on vacation here in 3 weeks, and guess what? I'm going to do my darndest to not work all day while I'm on vacation. So there's ebbs and flows of that stuff. For 4 months a year, I coach my daughter's softball team, so they know my workday ends at 5 p.m. on those days Eastern, which means my concerns that are out on the West Coast, it's only 2 o'clock, and somebody's got to help handle that stuff if something happens, and that's where the magic of our relationship really lies.
I love it. And I can see that. And I've had that in different partnerships at different times, and it works. It works incredible. Let's go into, like, taking over failing stores, and what was that like? I don't know if that's the right term that you guys use internally, but let's dive into how you got involved with Fit 36.
Yeah, so we refer to everything as turnaround opportunities. We try to make everything positive. So the failing is negative, so we'll call it an opportunity. It just means there's a way to increase.
Internally, do you do the same thing?
Oh yeah, we do. Unless we're having a joke about something like that, but it helps us keep positive. It helps us go in. I mean, every day is not roses and sunshine, and it's not a magic, hey, you go in and the next day the business grows by 70%. There's hard work, there's lack of sleep, there's, early mornings, late nights, there's travel, there's time away from family. It's there's work to get done.
And you're right, though, because it's not it may be a failing store to whatever that thing is today, but for you, it is a turnaround opportunity.
Correct. And our business model has been, if you were to give us a call and say, hey, Steve, I got this thing that I have, out in Denver, and it's not working for me. Are you interested? And I got a 7-year lease left, and I owed all this liability and all these things. I mean, you could still be on the hook for $250,000. And for us, it's a chance to go out and do some good and find some opportunity in there where, all right, hey, we get to absolve somebody from their liability. They get to move on with their life while we get something in the door where we're not absorbing those initial costs to get in. So there's a loss to that person, but there's also a gain and a lack of liability in the future, which for me, it's all a win-win throughout, as long as we identify and we keep within the lines of logic and don't get emotional. We're not going to take on bad liability, generally speaking.
So you're right. Like, for the person that's exiting out, reduction or elimination of liability is a big win for them. And so it's even a bigger win than cash is sometimes, or getting more money out of it. Because when you're talking about leases and different things, that liability can add up quite a bit. So what are the things that you look for when you're evaluating a turnaround opportunity, whether you're going to take it on as a project or not? What are the key things that you're looking for?
Top couple of items, really, we go in first, and my requests are always some access to business systems. What are the financials looking like? I need the P&Ls and those things you're going to look at. I'll dive in and start to understand what are we current advertising kind of charging for our services versus what are we actually collecting. We'll get to understand that process in which they're selling. Are they discounting? Are they desperate? What's going on there? What is that outstanding liability against the business? Helps us forecast out when, assuming we can keep retention as high as possible, what are our scenarios going to look like, and at what intervals are we going to generate revenue off of the existing members or clients of that business? That's a big piece that a lot of people forget about. If somebody's got a year's worth of services pent up, I mean, that you're going to pay to service them for a year, and you can't go out and sell yourself into it because you inadvertently create almost this Ponzi scheme. You're trying to get money in the door to fund doing other things, and it shoots you in the foot long term. So
you're talking about customers that have paid in upfront for the services that are going to be provided over a certain period of time, maybe 11, 12 months.
Exactly. Yep. So especially in the fitness industry, which is where predominant amount of the work has come in, it's not out of this world to say, hey, if you buy a year's worth of training or a year's worth of group sessions, I'll give you a discount. So you start to understand some of those trends. You forecast out what your cash flow needs might be. Dive in harder, P&L, see what's going on marketing, understand where it's been going, try to understand some ROIs, see what we have going on there. Probably the most fun we'll have is we'll drive around for 4 to 6 hours locally and just what's the competition. You're in a new city and you get to, tell the lies of, hey, I'm Steve and I just moved new here, and this is my wife, or this is my buddy. We're here for work. And you go in and you secret shop places. You understand what's going on. Dive into your Google stuff, your reviews, who's out there, who's leading the way. Just try to truly grasp. And if you know that they've been managing the cash flow of the business poorly, they've been marketing or executing that piece poorly, and their customer service is poor. I mean, those three things are easily fixable items. That's not hard. Now, same thing if they're getting amazing reviews, the customer service is blowing it out of the water, their rent is too high and all that. This is where you got to not be emotional, and it's probably not the right situation. Turn it around, because they're probably not sucking that bad. And it's probably just a situation where maybe the location was wrong.
Yeah. That's great advice, because I know a lot of people do get emotional about something like that. And it's easy to get emotional when the appearance of good things happening, good reviews, they don't have this bad, they don't have that bad. You can tend to start to think like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I can go in and just change a couple things and have big results. But the things that you need to change are already decent. And so that's probably not a good opportunity. What are some of the locations? Like if you're looking for a location, what are some of the things that you've learned on how to find really good locations and things to avoid?
For us, two main things it comes down to is understanding the lease and the structure in which that kind of building exists, making sure that everything is sound, the lease is sound, and everything seems kind of on the up and up. It's going to be taken care of, and you're not going to end up in a building that you are ultimately maybe ashamed of. Secondary piece of that for us really comes down to is, what is my dollar per square foot? And what does that ultimately look like, whether it's a triple net on there, a gross, who cares? But how much money do I need to generate in every square foot of that space to pay for it? And is there enough room on the upper end of that based upon what else is going on around here, my competition, what the pricing could look like for your specific situation? That's a big thing for us. Outside of there's not many more important factors that we tend to look at.
Are you willing to pay more for a better location?
As long as when you mean better, it means I can charge more.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, correct. Yeah. If I don't necessarily need the building with the marble on the outside, but if the building with the marble outside is in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, where it's one of the wealthiest, towns in the country, sure, I'll pay more money for that. Not a problem at all, because I can then charge 15 to 20% more for the services we're providing.
Yep. I get it. So continue down this evolution of the partnership and when did it started to come together when you formed the mastermind, you put people together, you all have your strengths and not operating out of your weaknesses. What was the point when you said we can do something even bigger than what we planned on doing?
Well, most business gets done over a happy hour and a handshake. So we were all out just kind of celebrating our success through what we had done. We were not only turning a Fitness Together studio around, but also we were leading in a lot of categories across an entire system on a national level. So started having some conversations, and for us it was, oh cool, how this would be great if. And lo and behold, out to dinner with the vice president of operations and just having a conversation. He's a personal friend of mine at this point, and says, are you guys interested in maybe taken another one over. We have another one that's going to be coming up, and we'd really hate to see it close, and looks like an opportunity. So went down that road, explored through it, and it became a no-brainer that you know what, yeah, it falls within the guidelines of what we want. Let's go out and do it. And when we went 2 for 2 on flipping those, while maintaining the growth in the original core studios that had existed, we realized that we can go out and do it. And then we started to test the waters in the massage world. Now, in personal training, packages are big, recurring revenue is not as big, but when you go into massage, it's all recurring revenue driven, and you're talking a significantly lower price point. Well, took over a studio, and immediately we were able to create growth in that atmosphere. And that's when it was a good situation of, all right, well, it's not just about the push-up anymore. Now we can truly call it business. We know that we can go in and we have the ability to market and operate and grow and build the strategy and execute it across the board in the important factors within the business. So one of the next things we tried was, let's see if we can't open a new location and see how do we do as a group there, because that's still a whole different animal. There's different pieces there. So we went out and opened a brand new Fitness Together and a brand new Elements Massage, kind of tested our ability to do it both in an ongoing turnaround situation as well as let's start brand new. And we set a couple of records in the Elements Massage world, which I'm a week away from getting that bottle of scotch that the president owes me. And then in Fitness Together, we were able to open strong and set some and be in the running for kind of leading the way on some brand new studios opening in that. So we now knew we kind of had that winning formula to go out and take over and open brand new along the way. And that's when the opportunity for Fit 36 and moving into the franchisor role really came about. So
at that point, or even before that, when did you start thinking like, you know, franchisor might be the next thing for us? Was it at that point, or was it earlier in kind of, you know, conversations over a beer?
No, it was the day that it was announced they were looking to move that system somewhere else. And we take a very opportunistic approach to our growth, where we have a lot to offer as a team, as a group of individuals. We have capabilities that most other teams don't have. And it's that whole, there's probably somebody smarter out there, but there's nobody that's going to work harder. And that's where we go out and thrive. So somebody comes knocking on the door and says, hey, I have this opportunity here, and we'll go back and talk about it. And there's 3 of us that are aggressive. 1 is neutral, and 2 are very conservative. So we do a good job of weighing each other out and making sure we don't say yes to everything. But the day that it was announced they were looking to unload it, it was the end of August of last year, August 28th, actually, 2018. And 2.5 weeks later, myself and 1 team member, we were out in Denver, basically discussing what could that possibly look like. So, and we had some pseudo consulting gigs prior to that. We had some pseudo things we were going out and working on, not our own businesses. And we honestly viewed it from the start as, hey, you know what? This is ultimately, let's go out and brainstorm about how to solve the current struggles and go effectively do some consulting work for all of our franchisees. And know that at the end of the day, we make our money by making them successful. So that's truly how it started. And now 8 months in, we're having a blast, changing a bunch of things. We've already seen double-digit growth on average across the system, which is just extremely exciting, especially as we're starting to gear up to go out and actually grow the franchise by locations.
So were the franchisees that how many franchisees were in the system other than you guys at the point that you guys took it over?
Other than us, there was 10 additional locations, so 11 at the time.
Okay. And so were they pretty happy at that point, or was it like, okay, these guys were great franchisees, but we'll see if they're great franchisors? What was the mindset of the other franchisees like?
You know what? I would say evenly across the board, everybody was excited because of the the history of us, as well as some of the consulting work we did with some sales trainings and some things like that for this system. So they knew us, we had a relationship, they were happy there. The concerns come from the idea that, well, you know, it costs that much to run that franchisee and that franchise, you know, or franchise in that location. Can they afford it? Can you go through that? Are we going to lose some of the assets that we have? And, you know, so it was a good mix of excitement on the relationship, but can they support this thing? And I would like to believe that 8 months later, we've been able to basically make a good relationship with every location and show that our ability to work hard will outperform a dollar any day of the week.
And then the proofs in the growth, right? Their growth, their numbers. What are some of the things that you experience? Like as a franchisee, we all are smarter than the franchisors, you know, like franchisees know way more than all franchisors. And I'm sure you were the same. Like, what were some of the surprises that were like, oh my gosh, we're not quite as smart as we thought we were, like, just like it was when you were doing push-ups, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's been a learning curve of understanding. I'm bad at politics. I like you or you like me, and that's cool. But if we don't like each other, that's also cool. Like there's not this big game to be played. But I realize as you kind of move into those other roles and you get a little bit bigger, you need to be a little bit more cautious or concerned about those relationships. But then I've also learned some of the way where when you do play those games, you might get in bed with the wrong company, or you know, it's that balancing act of, do I make my franchisees pay $10 extra for this thing in the hopes that it returns $30, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many intricate details on a negotiation and on a setting up the future vision. The communication part is by far the hardest part because you're trying to send one message out to multiple people, owners, managers, employees. They all hear and absorb information differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send something out and magically in the 10 locations today, only one of them actually figured it out the way it was meant to be. And I'm like, all right, well, this is obviously a me issue. This is not a them thing, but that's always the biggest struggle that we have, at least so far. And that's part of why I'm in Denver now. It's actually making some trips out to our locations, starting to shore up some of the changes operationally that are coming down now, and truly explaining that vision and tying the change today into what's happening into the future.
So one of the things that I've seen, just like you, I mean, I've formed partnerships with people that I've seen how they are in the franchise themselves. And that's how we started Solo Salons in Orange County. We developed 12 locations there. And it was, you know, similar because we all knew each other like you guys did. And from the personal standpoint and the business standpoint, and our strengths played off and weaknesses played off of each other. But for you guys, like, once you got into business and you are now like out there with the franchisees and trying to communicate with them, are there certain things that have changed the dynamics in the partnership as you have grown into going from a franchisee turnarounds to franchisor?
Yes and no. You know, it's the hardest change really in that communication, that partnership has been the things you can and cannot say when you are a franchisor. As a franchisee, you can suggest things and do all this to every other location all you want, and there's no trouble to be had. But nowadays, there's a lot more items that can potentially get in the way or cause a problem. So that's the hardest part. There's people that have a lot of trust in me. A good kind of reference on that would be just having a conversation with a franchisee over, hey, how do I pay my employees? And I'm like, I don't know. Can't really answer that for you. I'm sorry. You know, so there's just certain lines that you have to steer clear of so you don't get yourself in trouble.
Well, you guys started out with that mastermind, and there's so much value in franchisees communicating with other franchisees. So I'm sure part of that communication that you as a franchisor want to do is facilitate conversation with franchisees. So how do you, is that true? And if it is, how do you go about helping foster that?
Yeah, so our biggest commitment in April, we held our national conference and everybody attended to it, but our biggest commitment was transparency. Second biggest commitment was change. And transparency to us is just important. I don't want anybody to be blindsided by anything. Now, I will say that there's probably some negatives that come out of that because you're going to be transparent to a point where you may not have 100% of something complete. People fill in that last piece and it creates confusion or fear. But I'd rather everybody be in the know than not. Some of the items we do is we send out a monthly newsletter to all of our franchisees just to keep them updated on certain things, reinforce things that have recently been changed and put out there. We have a Facebook group that's specific to all owners and managers only. Yearly, we plan to do that conference, and the conference is way more of a party and fun than sitting in a room and looking at a whiteboard. We have a monthly roundtable call. First half of the call is just general updates coming out from the leadership team. So if anybody, I'm on every single call. If anybody else has something relevant to discuss or get out there, we'll definitely get it out there. And we always encourage the questions on those calls, ask people to, at least say yes, yes and no. Even if they're negative questions, we just want to get them out there. So pushing that out there. And then, it's even the little things where send out an email, and a lot of franchisors, which I know why, they will do a BCC to all of the franchisees. And it's like, but for us, we're going to do a CC. So if somebody replies all, the communication that happens goes among everybody and everybody's in the loop. Now, that's completely manageable at 10 locations. I'm sure there will be a time, let's talk in a year or two. If that's still what's happening, who knows? But today, those are the big things that are important that we really strive for.
Hopefully that will change. Hopefully you have to BCC at some point because you have so many locations out there. But
yes.
what is the growth? What are you guys looking for? What do you guys want?
Right now we're tying up the loose ends on what Fit 36 kind of 2.0 is going to look like. We're in the home stretch with some of the major equipment vendors that we're going to have in there. We're in the home stretch with our marketing partners, our vendor partners, for whether it be retail or just general kind of enhancements to the brand, the education piece. We want to go out and solve a couple of problems. One of the quote unquote successful franchise model in the world, or the accepted number, is an owner of that business makes $60,000 a year. And that's just not enough in our mind. So we want to go out and drive the ability for people to grow beyond that. And maybe 60 is the right number when you own 10, but in my mind, 60 is not the right number if you own one. Mm-hmm. We want to have the ability for there to be multi-location owners and have it be less owner-operator and more potentially investor model. So what are the technological pieces? What are the staffing pieces? What are the items that need to be in play to solve those problems there? The footprint, the model, opening it needs to look sharp. We're competing in a space that has a ton of other people in there. It's group fitness. You can walk out of your door and walk a half mile in some direction and you're going to find places, not even just a place nowadays. So what makes us different? And our biggest thing we're going on is, it's not my fancy heart rate monitor system. It's not my fancy functional fitness. It's not my fancy anything else. It's going to be driving results of our members. And we are going to be their partner in health and wellness, even if they choose not to necessarily work out with us. We're still here to help you achieve your goal. Driving high value, low cost memberships is going to be a big thing of ours. And probably one of the most important things for us, because every single one of us didn't go into this world as an owner. We all started in our 20s and we're a trainer part-time, and there was an opportunity given and we took advantage of it. But we want to make sure that the team members are getting educated, are becoming better, but also find opportunity in the brand, or just generally speaking in kind of the world, to go up and grow. So whether you want to go from working the front desk and taking care of the customer service piece to being a trainer, or you want to go all the way up to becoming an owner, or you want to be a multi-location owner, we really want to drive supporting that ability for them. And that's important to us because it's kind of our way to give back, because again, we were able to do it.
Are you looking at other turnaround opportunities and things like that? Or are you like completely focused on Fit 36? Because it seems like you have a good amount of bandwidth with the partnership group. And so once that franchise or opportunity came along, is it putting the turnaround things to the side, or is there like kind of two companies?
So we kind of run three companies today. So we have Fit 36 as a franchise, and I kind of lead that. Everybody else is helping there. We have our turnaround on a location level business, which Mike and Katie tend to lead that side, and they direct what the rest of us need to be doing there. We also do some consulting work out there on taking businesses from the red and moving them to the black. Lisa tends to lead that area. So we have the bandwidth to continue to grow. Our location level business, we've hired 3 regional managers that effectively manage the pieces of the business. And I don't know the last time I walked into a store and did something anymore, because we hired the right team to work and manage that business too. So somebody comes our way and says, hey, we want to do something. The answer is going to be, how do we do it? And we'll find a way to solve that problem and then go and add that onto the plate as well.
So you're looking, so Lisa, your original partner, is kind of heading up the consulting side of things. And so is that at the franchisee level, multi-unit franchisee level, or franchisor level?
So currently we're working with some individual franchisees, as well as a franchisor has actually hired us on to go and help them with some of their corporate locations, as well as some of their managed locations. So we're out just kind of working in multiple facets. Typically those consulting side of things have a hard end date. So we know, like, hey, we're dedicating resources to this until X. Which helps us continue to plan out. Now, if people are looking to extend those things and whatnot, obviously, if something else comes our way, it would be a conversation of what are the odds we want to continue to extend this, so we know we want to be respectful of that first company, right? And if we're enjoying working with them, we're going to make sure to manage that stuff accordingly.
What are some of the common things that Lisa would see in underperforming or turnaround type things? Like, what is she going to notice right away?
Biggest thing, and it's the current system we're working with, just the sales world is a complete disaster, I guess would probably be a good way to put it. There's almost like 2 businesses within the one business. One business side is extremely profitable, but the other side of it is extremely in the red there, and we're using the profits from side A to pay for side B, and it's almost turning places upside down or creating a lack of profitability there. So in this specific instance, it's truly a big pricing structure change. It's a big sales process change, and the hurdle is the location of certain kind of geographically speaking, of certain stores and studios that are relative to the other ones. So some might be succeeding, others might be failing. We're going to change pricing, but if you're 5 miles down the road, how does that affect the bigger scale of things? So that's where the franchisor kind of comes in, and we're starting to work on a bigger level plan, and also want to generate more of a recurring revenue model. Any business out there that has closer to the word guaranteed money coming in the door is just worth more at the end of the day. So that's the biggest piece we're working on now.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of goes back into, like what you were looking at before. If there's not if the sales process, sales system isn't dialed in the way that a mature brand that's done it a lot, or had someone like you that's been a part of it and seen it, it impacts revenue. and, is looking at turnaround locations of specific franchises. If you're looking at acquiring a turnaround, it's sales, it's also, management. The key manager, is that person really right for the role? So let's kind of end on that note. Like, give us some advice on, hiring and firing in a turnaround location.
You got to have a clear picture. What's the best way to approach this? And when you look at it from, call it, an ownership point of view, first question you need to answer is, what involvement do you want or need to have in the business on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis? Once you understand what you want to be doing, now you build something or structure around you. And a good example, again, that what we're working in now is, we believe a dual management is going to be ideal. The owner of the business, in air quotes on that, is not somebody that's going to be working in the business on any daily basis whatsoever. So we need to account for finding the right people for the tasks that need to happen, whether we're working on business development, whether we're working on sales, if there's actually training or coaching to be happening, or paying the bill, like just whatever is going to be happening. So dual management for us has been very successful. It deepens your bench on somebody that knows how to do every aspect of the business, as well as you create a triangle of accountability. Typically it's owner to manager, but then when you have manager to manager with owner involved, there's this intrinsic motivation for most people to not want to fail the person they work with. It's a little easier to get pissed off at your owner because your owner never does any work. They didn't risk a lot of money or any of that crap. So you build your structure around your leaders, and then you start filling in what's going to happen beyond there. So again, whether your business has front desk, whether your business has some type of coaching or training situation, whether you have some type of outside sales roles, things like that, you're going to start to layer in those pieces after you go there. So we're very much top down. What does the owner want? Layer in the managers, whatever they're not covering, hiring in the additional people there. But all of that to say, you need to stay within your budget. So know what your budget is, predict that, what you need to be at, and find a way to get there. Paying somebody more does not solve your problem. So you got to find the right people and pay them the right amount for them. And that last point is, ask them the questions. People will tell you how much they want to get paid, how much they need to get paid, and they'll also tell you how they like to get paid or what motivates them with their pay. A lot of people are afraid to ask somebody that question.
That's great. What is asking that question? What kind of response are you looking for?
Just need to understand, what does it cost you to live a month? And if you tell me you need $150,000 in a job that should pay $60,000, I mean, I just want to have that conversation with you and not waste your time. But at the same point in time, if you need to make 35 and you hope to make 45 because, well, hey, it's a $50,000 job and that makes sense.
Yep.
You now can have that follow-up question with, hey, do you want a guaranteed 50 or do you want a guaranteed 40 with the opportunity to make 60? How are you better? How do you function better? How am I going to help fuel your fire? As an owner, as a leader, you need to empower the team to go do what they want to do. And that's step one, is being able to do that and understand what drives them.
This is great. And it goes into your just being blunt and straightforward. I mean, that's asking those questions like that. I mean, it brings clarity, and this is stuff that gets uncovered, later as they're working for you. So you may as well know it up front, and it's better for all parties. And for people that are not as upfront as you are and I am, it's uncomfortable at first, but get out of your comfort zone. That was some great advice on hiring and just in general. So thank you for coming on the show. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Email is going to generally be best. Just you call me, I might be on an airplane or whatever. So email is going to be steve@bcweholdings.com is going to be my main email account there. So again, it's BCWE Holdings. Cell phone number, perfectly fine if you want to reach out there too. Phone call, voicemail is typically best on that one. 201-371-3353. So
Excellent.
those are going to be the best two ways.
And if you need to reach me for any reason, if you're looking at buying a franchise, talk with Erik, ERIK.com. So Steve, it'll be interesting to follow up with you in the years ahead to kind of see where you are with Fit 36 and what else you're involved with as well. From history, something tells me that you're going to have more things on your plate, and you probably will have your own airplane at some point flying you around.
Hopefully.